The diplomatic vessel Harmony's edge hung in space like a massive silver needle against the black. Captain stood on the bridge, his four arms crossed behind his back as he watched the approaching human shuttle. His pale blue skin rippled with patterns that showed his nervousness, though he tried to hide it. "Sir, the human representative is requesting permission to board," his communications officer announced. The young hegemony soldier's voice cracked slightly. Everyone knew this was an important day. "Grant it," said. His voice was deep and steady, the voice of someone who had conquered 12 star systems. "Have the honor guard ready in docking bay 3. Had seen the files. Humanity was new to space, barely 200 years since they left their home planet. They controlled only a handful of worlds in what they called the Sol system and a few colonies beyond. Their technology was primitive compared to the hegemony. Their ships were crude metal boxes that somehow flew between stars. They should have been easy to intimidate. But something about this meeting felt wrong. The shuttle docked with a heavy clang that shook the entire bay. Winced. Human technology was so rough, so violent. When hegemony ships docked, it was like silk touching silk. This sounded like rocks hitting metal. He walked to the docking bay with his escort of 20 guards. Each guard carried weapons that could cut through steel. Their armor shined under the bright lights. Wore his finest diplomatic robes, decorated with the symbols of every world he had brought into the hegemony. The human shuttle's door opened with a hiss of escaping air. Expected to see a large warrior, maybe wearing primitive armor. Instead, a small woman stepped out. She was tiny, maybe 5.5 feet tall, with dark hair tied back simply. Her skin was brown, and her eyes were dark. She wore plain gray clothes that looked like work uniforms rather than diplomatic dress. She carried a single bag over her shoulder. "Captain," she asked. Her voice was calm and quiet. "I am Maya, speaking for the human colonies." Stared at her. This was their representative. This small, plainly dressed woman. He had expected soldiers, weapons, some show of force. Instead, they sent someone who looked like she should be working in a factory. "I am captain of the Hegemony Council," he said formally. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Edge." Maya nodded once. "Thank you." She looked around the docking bay with interest, taking in the polished floors, the neat rows of equipment, the perfect order of everything. Her gaze lingered on the guards. "Your ship is very clean," she said. Did not know how to respond to that. Of course it was clean. The hegemony maintained perfect standards in all things. "We believe in order and discipline," he said. "I can see that," Maya replied. Something in her tone made uncomfortable, though he could not say why. They walked through the ship's corridors toward the main conference room. Maya moved with a strange grace, her steps silent on the metal floors. The guards' boots rang out in perfect rhythm, but Maya made no sound at all. It was like she was floating. The conference room was magnificent. The walls were covered in displays showing the extent of the hegemony's power. Star charts marked hundreds of worlds under their control. Images showed vast fleets of warships, massive space stations, entire planets covered in gleaming cities. Maya sat down across from at the long table. She did not seem impressed by the displays. She did not even look at them. "Your people requested this meeting," began. "The hegemony is always willing to welcome new civilizations into our family of worlds." "Your definition of welcome is interesting," Maya said. She opened her bag and pulled out a simple tablet. "You've demanded tribute from our colonies. You've threatened military action if we refuse. You've given us 30 days to surrender our independence. Most people would call that conquest, not welcome." Skin patterns shifted to show mild annoyance. "The hegemony brings order to chaos. We bring peace to war. We bring civilization to primitive worlds." "Primitive?" Maya looked at him directly for the first time. Her eyes were completely calm, but something about them made one step back. "What makes you think we're primitive?" "Your technology is crude," said. "Your ships are barely space-worthy. Your weapons are chemical explosives and metal projectiles. You have no real military to speak of. Most of your colonies are on barely livable worlds that no civilized species would choose to inhabit." Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled and felt cold fear crawl up his spine. It was not a friendly smile. "You think strength comes from clean ships and shiny weapons," Maya said. "You think civilization means comfort and order. You've spent so long conquering prey that you've forgotten what predators look like." "We are not prey," said stiffly. "The hegemony is the strongest force in this galaxy. Our fleets number in the millions. Our weapons can crack moons. We have brought peace to over 300 worlds." "By threatening them into submission," Maya said. "How many of those 300 worlds actually fought back?" Hesitated. The truth was, very few. Most civilizations surrendered when they saw the size of the hegemony's fleets. The few that resisted were usually crushed quickly by overwhelming force. "Resistance is futile when faced with superior power," he said. "Superior power," Maya repeated. She stood up from her chair with liquid grace. "Let me tell you something about my home world, Captain. 442b. Gravity is nearly twice what you're used to. The atmosphere will kill most species in minutes. The storms can strip flesh from bone. The native predators hunt in packs and can smell blood from miles away." She walked to the wall display showing images of hegemony worlds. All of them were beautiful, with blue skies and green plants and peaceful cities. "I was born in a mining station built inside a mountain, because the surface was too dangerous," Maya continued. "When I was 6 years old, I killed my first with a mining tool because it got into our shelter. When I was 10, I survived a toxic storm by hiding in a cave for 3 days with no food. When I was 15, I walked 60 miles through hostile territory to bring medicine to an injured worker." She turned back to face him. "Do not think to fight us, little one. Your people cannot comprehend what they face." Felt anger rise in his chest. "You dare to threaten the hegemony, you, from a single system with a handful of colonies." Maya's expression did not change. "And you cannot comprehend what you're threatening. I warn you, don't make me prove why they sent someone from the system to negotiate." The two stared at each other across the conference room, saw in Maya's eyes something he had never seen before in all his years of conquest. Not fear, not anger, not even hatred. He saw patience, the kind of patience a hunter has when waiting for prey to make a mistake. For the first time in his life, Captain wondered if the hegemony had bitten off more than it could chew. After Maya left for her guest quarters, locked himself in his private office. The walls were covered with star charts and battle reports from his victories. Usually, looking at them gave him comfort. Tonight, they felt like lies. He opened his personal files and began reading everything the hegemony had gathered about humanity. What he found made no sense. Earth, the human home world, was classified as a death world by galactic standards. 90% of known species could not survive on its surface without life support. The gravity was too strong. The atmosphere was too dense. The weather was too violent. The native life forms were too aggressive. Yet humans had not just survived there. They had thrived. They had built cities and farms and eventually reached the stars. Even more disturbing, when they left Earth, they did not look for comfortable worlds like normal species. They actively sought out the most dangerous planets they could find. 442b, Maya's home world, was worse than Earth. The files showed mining records of workers operating in conditions that would kill most aliens in seconds. Temperature swings of over 100 degrees. Atmospheric pressure that could crush unprotected beings. Native life that attacked everything that moved. The humans called it challenging. Pulled up video files from human colonies. He watched workers in what they called light duty, carrying loads that would require machinery for any other species. He saw children playing games that looked like combat training. He watched a human farmer defend her crops from a pack of predators using only farming tools, and she was smiling the whole time. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. "Come," he called. His aide, Sub-Commander N, entered with a concerned expression. "Sir, we need to discuss the human representative." "What about her?" asked, though he suspected he knew. She broke the ceremonial chalice and said hesitantly. Looked up sharply. The ceremonial chalice was made of crystallized titanium. It could survive being dropped from orbit. How? She picked it up to examine it during the greeting ceremony. She squeezed too hard, and skin patterns showed deep worry. "Sir, the medical scans we took when she boarded. Her bone density is off the charts. Her muscle mass is impossible. According to our instruments, she should not be able to move under her own power." "But she does move," said quietly. "Like she weighs nothing," and confirmed. "Sir, I've watched the security footage. When she walks, she barely touches the ground. When she sits, she does not actually rest her full weight on the chair. It is like she is constantly controlling every movement to avoid breaking everything around her." Felt cold, what else? "The guards are nervous. They say she smells wrong. Not bad, just wrong like a predator, and she never blinks, sir. She can go minutes without blinking. It makes everyone uncomfortable." Dismissed his aide and returned to the files. He found personal records that the humans had willingly shared as part of diplomatic protocol. Maya, born on 442B. Parents were mining engineers. Lost her father to a cave-in when she was 12. Lost her mother to a toxic storm when she was 16. Worked in the deep mines from age 14 to 25. Joined the Colonial Defense Force at 25. Rose to commander in 3 years. The Defense Force records were more interesting. Maya had trained new recruits in survival techniques. The list of techniques included surviving in toxic atmospheres, hunting dangerous wildlife with improvised weapons, emergency medical procedures using mining equipment, and something called persistence hunting. Looked up persistence hunting. What he found made his blood freeze. Humans did not evolve to be fast or strong compared to their prey. Instead, they evolved to never give up. They would chase their prey for hours, days even, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it with tools. They were not predators in the normal sense. They were something worse. They were hunters who succeeded not through strength or speed, but through absolute refusal to stop. Meanwhile, in her guest quarters, Maya was having her own moment of understanding. The room was beautiful. Soft lighting, perfect temperature, furniture that adjusted to her body. Everything was clean and smooth and comfortable. It was like a luxury hotel room. Maya had never seen anything like it, and it told her everything she needed to know about the hegemony. She opened her communication device and contacted her superiors on 442B. The face that appeared on the screen was weathered, and with cybernetic implants replacing an eye and an ear. "Commander," General Torres said, "how are the negotiations going?" "They're not negotiations," Maya said. "They're a surrender demand, but that's not the important part." "What is?" "They don't know what war is," Maya said. "General, I've been on this ship for 6 hours. I've seen their guards, their weapons, their facilities. They're designed to impress, not to fight. Their idea of military action is showing up with overwhelming force and waiting for the enemy to give up." General Torres was quiet for a moment. "You think they've never faced real resistance?" "I think they've never faced anything that fights back," Maya corrected. "Their weapons are designed to destroy things, not to kill things that are trying to kill them. Their armor is for show, not for protection. Their soldiers move like they're on parade, not like they're expecting a fight." "What about their numbers? The intelligence reports say they have massive fleets." Maya was quiet for a moment. She thought about the guards who had escorted her, how they moved in perfect formation but never checked corners or watched for threats. She thought about the ship's design, how everything was open and beautiful but nothing was defensible. "Numbers don't matter if you don't know how to use them," she said finally. "General, these people aren't warriors. They're bureaucrats with weapons. They've been conquering civilized species for so long they've forgotten what uncivilized looks like. And what do we look like to them?" Maya smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Like we just crawled out of hell, because we did. She closed the communication and walked to the window. Outside, the hegemony fleet stretched as far as she could see. Hundreds of ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. But Maya was not worried. She was thinking about persistence hunting. She was thinking about her childhood on 442B, where everything was trying to kill you and you had to be tougher than everything else just to live another day. She was thinking about what happened when prey animals tried to threaten predators. Back in his office was reading his own past. He had been born on a garden world with perfect weather and abundant food. His people had evolved from herbivorous herd animals. They were naturally peaceful, naturally cooperative. War was something they had learned from other species, not something that came naturally. He remembered his first conquest, a small world called, inhabited by a species of artists and musicians. When the hegemony fleet arrived, they had immediately surrendered. No shots were fired. No one died. They were relocated to a protected world where they could continue their art under hegemony supervision. It had been so clean, so civilized. Every conquest after that had been the same. Show overwhelming force, accept surrender, integrate the new species into the hegemony. It was efficient. It was peaceful. It was how civilized beings handled expansion. But now understood something that terrified him. The hegemony had never conquered a warrior species. They had only conquered other civilized peoples who understood that resistance would be futile. Maya and her people were not civilized in the way the hegemony understood civilization. They were something else entirely. Something that had crawled up from hell worlds and learned to call the impossible challenging. Something that would not understand the concept of civilized surrender. Something that the hegemony was completely unprepared to fight. The formal session began 3 days later in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Harmony's Edge. The room was designed to intimidate, with a high ceiling covered in holographic displays showing the full might of the hegemony. Hundreds of counselors sat in curved rows, their various alien forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Maya sat alone at a small table in the center of it all. She looked tiny surrounded by the massive chamber, but she did not seem concerned. She had brought only her simple tablet and a cup of what the ship's systems identified as coffee, some kind of human stimulant drink. High Counselor Ra, the supreme leader of the hegemony, stood to address the assembly. She was tall and elegant, with silver skin and graceful movements that spoke of generations of breeding for leadership. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had never been disobeyed. "Representative," she began, "the Hegemony Council has reached its decision regarding humanity's place in our great civilization." Maya sipped her coffee and waited. "Your species will be granted protected status within the hegemony. Your colonies will be moved to suitable worlds where you can live in comfort and safety. Your military forces will be disbanded, as they will no longer be necessary. Your industrial capacity will be integrated into our economic system for maximum efficiency." The High Counselor gestured to the displays around the chamber, which now showed peaceful garden worlds with gleaming cities. "You will have everything you need: food, shelter, entertainment, purpose. All we ask in return is your cooperation." "And if we refuse?" Maya asked calmly. "Refusal is not a realistic option," High Counselor Ra replied. "We are offering you a choice between peaceful integration and military conquest. I am sure you can see which option serves your people better." Maya stood up slowly. Every eye in the chamber was on her as she walked to the center of the speaking area. When she turned to address the assembly, her voice was quiet but somehow carried to every corner of the vast room. You have clearly put a lot of thought into our future, she said. But I think there's been a misunderstanding. We did not come here to negotiate our surrender. We came here to warn you. A murmur of confusion rippled through the assembly. High Counselor Ra's skin patterns shifted to show mild annoyance. Warn us about what? About what happens if you attack human colonies, Maya said simply. The murmur became laughter. Hundreds of alien voices created a sound like wind chimes in a storm. The idea that humans could threaten the mighty hegemony was apparently amusing. Maya waited for the laughter to die down. Then she continued. You have been very generous in sharing information about your military capabilities, fleets that number in the millions, weapons that can crack moons, impressive numbers. She paused. Would you like to hear about our capabilities? Your primitive weapons are already in our files, High Counselor Ra said dismissively. Those are not our weapons, Maya said. Those are our tools. Our weapons are different. She touched her tablet, and the chamber's displays changed. Instead of garden worlds and gleaming cities, they now showed images from human colonies. The assembly fell silent. The first image showed a mining operation on an asteroid. Human workers in simple spacesuits were using explosives to break up rock. The explosives were creating explosions that would have destroyed any hegemony facility. Civilian mining operation, Maya narrated. Standard blasting charges. We use these for routine construction work. The next image showed a human cargo ship. It looked crude and simple compared to hegemony vessels, but the specifications scrolling beside it told a different story. Civilian transport vessel, Maya continued. Armor thickness, sufficient to survive uncontrolled atmospheric entry. Engine output, sufficient to achieve escape velocity from a heavy gravity world without orbital boosters. Cargo capacity, designed to carry mining equipment and supplies to locations no other species considers habitable. More images followed. A human farming community defending their crops from native predators. Children playing sports that looked like combat training. Workers performing routine maintenance tasks in environments that would be considered extreme hazard zones by any other species. This is daily life for humans, Maya said. What you call military-grade equipment, we call work clothes. What you call extreme combat conditions, we call a normal day. High Counselor Ra was no longer amused. Are you threatening us? I am explaining why your military analysis is incomplete, Maya replied. You have calculated how to destroy human ships and weapons. You have not calculated how to destroy humans. She touched her tablet again. New images appeared, historical records from Earth. This is my species' history, Maya said. We have been at war for our entire existence. Not with each other, though we do that too, but with our environment, with physics, with chemistry, with biology, with everything that has tried to kill us for millions of years. The images showed humans in impossible situations, surviving in frozen wastelands, living in burning deserts, working in the depths of toxic oceans, building cities in places where no life should exist. You want to know what our real weapon is? Maya asked. It is not our ships or our explosives. Our weapon is this. We do not know how to give up. We do not understand the concept of impossible. When everything is trying to kill you, you learn that the only choice is to be tougher than everything else. The chamber was completely silent now. So here is my warning, Maya continued. If you attack human colonies, we will not surrender. We will not negotiate. We will not behave in the civilized manner you expect. We will fight you the way we fight everything else, completely, relentlessly, without mercy or restraint, until either you are gone or we are. She paused to let that sink in. And when you realize what you have started, when you want to stop, when you try to negotiate or surrender or ask for mercy, remember this moment. Because once we start fighting, we do not know how to stop. High Counselor Ra stood in shocked silence for a long moment. Finally, she found her voice. You cannot threaten the entire hegemony. You are one species from a handful of worlds." Maya smiled again, that cold, patient smile that made everyone in the chamber uncomfortable. "You are right," she said. "We are one species, but we are the species that looked at planets trying to kill us and decided to live there anyway. We are the species that invented weapons capable of destroying our own world, then kept them as a backup plan. We are the species that considers 60% casualties an acceptable loss rate if the mission succeeds." She walked back toward her table, then stopped and turned around. "You have 72 hours to withdraw your ultimatum and leave human space," she said. "If you do not, then what happens next is not our choice. It is yours. Choose wisely." As Maya left the assembly hall, followed her, he caught up with her in the corridor outside. "Maya," he said urgently, "you cannot mean this. You have seen our strength. Our fleets could glass your worlds." Maya turned to face him. For a moment her expression was almost sad. She said quietly, "You're a good person. You genuinely want to save lives. So I am going to tell you something that I probably should not." She stepped closer to him, and he could see something in her eyes that made him want to run. "When this starts," she said, "you will want to stop. You will want to negotiate, to repent, to find mercy. Do not. When you realize what you have unleashed, when you see what humans become when we stop pretending to be civilized, you will want to surrender. Do not." "Why not?" he whispered. "Because we will not have any mercy left to give," Maya said simply. "We will have used it all up trying to avoid this moment. Once we start, we become something else, something you have never seen before, something that your civilized mind cannot comprehend." She turned and walked away, leaving alone in the corridor. Behind him, he could hear the frantic voices of the Hegemony Council as they tried to process what they had just heard. In 72 hours, they would have their answer. Already knew what it would be. The hegemony had never backed down from anyone. And humanity had just made it clear they would not either. The unstoppable force was about to meet the immovable object, and was beginning to suspect that the immovable object might be stronger than anyone imagined. 73 hours later, the Hegemony War fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the 442 system. 3,000 ships hung in formation like a vast wall of metal and weapons. It was the largest military force ever assembled in this region of space. Admiral, commander of the fleet, stood on the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Victory and studied the sensor readings. What he saw made no sense. "Where are the defense platforms?" he asked his tactical officer. "Sir, we are detecting no orbital defenses around any of the human colonies," the officer replied, his voice uncertain. "No weapon satellites, no shield generators, no fleet concentrations." "What about their ships?" "We count approximately 50 human vessels in the entire system. Most appear to be cargo transports or mining ships. We see no military vessels at all." Admiral frowned. Intelligence had said the humans would fight. Instead, they seemed to have no defenses whatsoever. It was almost disappointing. "Open a channel to all human colonies," he ordered. The communications officer worked at his console for a moment. "Channel open, sir." "Human settlements," Admiral announced. "This is Admiral of the Hegemony War Fleet. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Prepare for occupation and relocation. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The response came from 442B itself, a woman's voice, calm and pleasant. "Admiral, this is Colonial Administrator Sarah Mitchell. We received your message. We decline to surrender." Admiral blinked. "You decline? Do you understand what you are facing? We have 3,000 ships. You have 50. "We understand perfectly," came the reply. "We also warned you not to come here. Since you chose to ignore that warning, we are no longer responsible for what happens next." "You cannot resist us," Admiral said, his voice rising. "Surrender now and save yourselves pointless suffering. There was a pause. Then the woman's voice came back, and something in her tone made every alien on the bridge uncomfortable. "Admiral," she said, "you seem to think this is about resistance. You are wrong. This is not about resistance. This is about consequence." The channel went dead. Admiral stared at the silent communication console for a moment. Then he turned to his weapons officer. "Target the mining stations on 442B, he ordered. "Destroy one of them. That should convince them we are serious." "Yes, sir." The flagship's main cannon charged up with a sound like thunder. The beam that emerged could have destroyed a small moon. It struck one of the human mining stations dead center. For a moment there was a brilliant flash of light. When it faded, the mining station was gone. "Signal the humans again," Admiral ordered. "Tell them we will destroy another station every hour until they surrender." The communications officer tried to establish contact. "Sir, they are not responding to our signals." "Then destroy another station." The second mining station vanished in another flash of light. Still no response from the humans. Admiral was beginning to feel uneasy. In every previous conquest, the enemy had begged for mercy by now. They had offered to negotiate, to surrender, to discuss terms. The silence from the human colonies was unnerving. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "I am detecting movement from the human ships." "Are they fleeing?" "No, sir, they appear to be approaching us." Admiral looked at the tactical display. The 50 human ships were indeed moving toward his fleet, slowly, casually, like they were out for a pleasure cruise. "They must be trying to surrender in person," Admiral decided. "Let them approach to communications range, then we will accept their surrender." But the human ships did not stop at communications range. They kept coming. "Sir," the tactical officer said nervously, "they are entering weapons range." "Warn them off." "Human vessels, this is the inevitable victory. You are ordered to stop and prepare to be boarded." The human ships kept coming. "Sir, they are not responding, and they are not slowing down." Admiral was about to order a warning shot when something impossible happened. The 50 human ships suddenly accelerated to ramming speed, heading straight for his fleet. "Evasive maneuvers," Admiral shouted. "All ships evasive maneuvers." But it was too late. The human ships did not try to fight. They simply rammed directly into the largest hegemony vessels. The explosions lit up space like new stars. When the light faded, Admiral looked at his tactical display in shock. 50 human ships had destroyed themselves, and taken 200 hegemony ships with them. "How?" he whispered. "Sir," the sensor operator said in a shaken voice, "analysis shows the human ships were loaded with mining explosives. They turned their cargo vessels into massive bombs." Before Admiral could process this, alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. "Sir, we have multiple hyperspace signatures appearing throughout the system." More human ships were arriving, not 50 this time, hundreds of them. They appeared in small groups scattered across the system, emerging from hyperspace at points that should have been impossible to calculate. "How did they coordinate that jump?" the navigation officer asked in amazement. "The precision required." Admiral did not care about precision. He cared about the fact that human ships were appearing behind his formations, beside them, above and below them. All ships engaged the enemy. The battle that followed was unlike anything in hegemony military history. The human ships did not fight like normal vessels. They did not maintain formations or follow tactical doctrine. Instead, they moved like pack hunters, surrounding individual hegemony ships and attacking from all sides at once. Their weapons were crude but devastatingly effective. Instead of elegant energy beams, they used what appeared to be modified mining charges, explosive devices that could punch through any armor if they got close enough. And they always got close enough. Human pilots flew their ships in ways that should have been impossible. They performed maneuvers that would have killed any other species through acceleration alone. They rammed enemy ships without hesitation when their weapons were exhausted. They used debris fields as cover and asteroid belts as weapons. "Sir, we are receiving reports from all sectors," the communications officer announced, his voice cracking with stress. "The humans are not following any known combat patterns. They are fighting like animals." Admiral watched in horror as a human fighter squadron dove directly through the exhaust of a hegemony capital ship, using the superheated plasma as cover to attack its engines. Half the human fighters were destroyed by the heat, but the remaining pilots continued their attack as if nothing had happened. "Sir, Admiral is requesting permission to withdraw her squadron. She reports 70% casualties. We have superior numbers." But the numbers were changing rapidly. For every human ship destroyed, it seemed to take 3 or 4 hegemony vessels with it. The humans fought with a brutality and disregard for their own safety that no civilized military could match. And then the planetary defenses activated. 442b suddenly bristled with weapon installations that had been hidden inside the mining operations. The mining explosives that the humans had been using industrially were revealed to be military-grade weapons of devastating power. But it was not the weapons that terrified Admiral, it was the people using them. The sensor readings showed human defenders operating in conditions that should have been instantly lethal. They fought in vacuum without pressure suits, using their superior physiology to survive in space longer than any other species could. They operated weapons in radiation fields that would have cooked other beings. They continued fighting even after taking damage that should have been fatal. "Sir," the medical officer reported in a trembling voice, "we have intercepted human communications. They are encouraging each other to take more risks. They consider this battle to be fun." Admiral stared at the tactical display. In 6 hours of fighting, his fleet had been reduced from 3,000 ships to less than 2,000. The humans had lost perhaps 300 vessels. But they were still fighting with the same savage enthusiasm as when the battle began. "Sir," his aide said quietly, "should we consider withdrawal?" "No," Admiral said firmly. "We are the hegemony. We do not retreat. Signal all ships to concentrate fire on the planet itself. If we cannot defeat their ships, we will destroy their world." But even as he gave the order, Admiral felt a cold certainty growing in his mind. The humans had not been defending their world. They had been playing with him. And now that they were bored with playing, they were about to show him what they looked like when they got serious. In the depths of 442b, in bunkers carved from solid rock, human defenders were just beginning to wake up. The real battle was about to begin. 6 months later, sat in what had once been Admiral's ready room aboard the former hegemony flagship, Inevitable Victory. The ship now bore human markings and flew under the authority of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. Outside the viewport, the remains of the hegemony warfleet hung in space like a graveyard of metal and broken dreams. Of the 3,000 ships that had arrived at 442, fewer than 200 had survived to surrender. The rest were debris now, scattered across the system like a monument to miscalculation. Himself wore the simple gray uniform of a colonial integration specialist, a polite term for what he really was, a prisoner, a collaborator, a broken reminder of what the hegemony had once been. The door chimed and Maya entered. She looked different now than she had during their first meeting. Harder, more tired. The weight of command had settled on her shoulders like armor. "Hello," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "How is the integration process proceeding?" "Your people are efficient," replied carefully. He had learned to be very careful with his words around humans. The former hegemony crew members are adapting to their new roles. Maya nodded. She opened a tablet and reviewed some files. We have received word from the Hegemony Council. They are formally requesting negotiations for the return of their surviving personnel. Felt a brief spark of hope, and the request was, Maya said simply. The Colonial Defense Council has determined that returning trained military personnel to the hegemony would constitute a security risk. The hope died as quickly as it had come, so we are prisoners forever. You are citizens now, Maya corrected. You have the same rights as any human colonist. You can work, learn, build new lives. You simply cannot leave. Looked out at the debris field again. You warned me not to fight. I warned you not to repent. Yes, Maya said quietly. We both saw this coming. I should have listened, admitted. Maya was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than usual. The thing about warnings is that they only work if people believe them. Your hegemony had spent so long conquering civilized species that you forgot what uncivilized looked like. And what do we look like to you now? Maya considered the question seriously. Like children playing with weapons they do not understand, the hegemony built a military designed to intimidate prey into surrender. You never built a military designed to fight predators. Thought about the battle reports he had read. The human tactics had been unlike anything in military history. They had used their own civilian infrastructure as weapons. They had turned mining operations into fortress worlds. They had converted cargo ships into guided missiles. Most disturbing of all, they had seemed to enjoy it. How many of your people died? He asked. 37,000, Maya replied. Colony-wide, we considered that acceptable losses. Stared at her. Acceptable, you lost nearly 40,000 people. And you lost nearly 3 million, Maya pointed out. Plus the complete destruction of your invasion fleet. Plus the effective end of hegemony expansion in this region of space. We achieved our objectives at a cost we were willing to pay. How can you be so cold about your own people's deaths? Maya's expression hardened slightly. Because being emotional about casualties is a luxury that prey species can afford. Predator species learn early that death is part of life. We mourn our dead, but we do not let grief prevent us from doing what needs to be done. She stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, human salvage crews were working to strip useful materials from the hegemony wrecks. They moved with the same casual efficiency that had characterized their entire war effort. You want to know the real difference between us? Maya asked without turning around. Your people fight to preserve what you have. Our people fight to survive until tomorrow. Those are not the same thing. Joined her at the viewport. What happens now? Will your people continue expanding? Will you conquer the hegemony worlds? Probably, Maya said. Not because we want to, but because you have taught us that leaving potential enemies alive is dangerous. The Colonial Defense Council is already planning preemptive security operations in former hegemony space. You are going to do to other species what you did to us. We are going to do what we have to do to ensure our survival, Maya corrected. If that means conquering species that might threaten us later, then that is what we will do. If it means wiping out civilizations that cannot coexist with us, then we will do that too. Felt sick. You are becoming the thing you fought against. Maya turned to face him, and her expression was sad but determined. No, we are becoming what we always were. The hegemony forced us to stop pretending to be civilized. And what are you, really? Maya was quiet for a long moment. When she answered, her voice was barely above a whisper. We are the species that looked at a universe trying to kill us and decided to kill it first, she said. We are the species that survived by being more dangerous than anything else we encountered. We are what evolution creates when everything on your world is designed to end you. She walked back to her chair and sat down. Your people made a fundamental error in judgment. You assumed that because we were new to space, we were weak. You confused technological development with survival capability. And now your people get to learn what it means to live as prey, Maya said simply. You get to experience what it feels like to know that somewhere out there, something stronger and more dangerous is watching you, something that has proven it can destroy you whenever it chooses. You are describing terrorism. I am describing reality, Maya replied. This is how humans have lived for millions of years, every day knowing that we are not the strongest thing in our environment, every day having to prove we deserve to survive until tomorrow. Was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked the question that had been haunting him for months. Do you regret what happened? Maya considered this carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that your people forced us to show them what we really are. I regret that so many beings died because the hegemony could not accept that some species are not meant to be conquered. She paused, then continued. But I do not regret defending human colonies. I do not regret ensuring our species' survival. And I do not regret proving that humans are not prey animals. What about mercy? What about compassion? We used all of ours trying to avoid this war, Maya said quietly. We warned you. We explained what would happen. We gave you every chance to walk away. When you chose to attack anyway, you chose the consequences. She stood up again, preparing to leave. That is the lesson your people needed to learn. Actions have consequences. When you threaten predators, they do not surrender. They eliminate the threat. At the door, she turned back to him. Your people get to live because we chose to show mercy to those who surrender. Do not make us regret that choice. After Maya left, sat alone in the quiet room. Outside, human ships patrolled the system with casual confidence. In the distance, 442b continued its slow rotation, by battle but still inhabited, still productive, still dangerous. He thought about his own world, now under human protection. The reports said the occupation was peaceful, that humans were working with local authorities to maintain order, but knew the truth. His people were alive because humanity allowed them to live. They were free because humanity chose not to enslave them. They continued to exist because, for now, they posed no threat. The hegemony had believed in their own superiority for so long that they had forgotten a fundamental truth. In nature, there is always something higher on the food chain. Humans had not conquered the galaxy because they were more advanced or more numerous or more civilized. They had conquered it because they were hungrier, more desperate, and more willing to do whatever it took to survive. And now, for the first time in galactic history, every species in known space understood what it felt like to be prey. Looked out at the stars and wondered if this was how evolution was supposed to work. The weak conquered by the strong, the civilized replaced by the savage, the prey consumed by the predators. Perhaps it was. Perhaps humans were simply what the universe had been waiting for all along. The species that would teach everyone else what survival really meant, whether they wanted to learn or not.